There aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode. And as you can see, I literally just rolled out of bed today after working last night to get on here by 1 o'clock, and I'm only 5 minutes late. So that's not too bad for today. But today we're going to be talking about personal jurisdiction and kind of what you need to know. What is it? What does it mean? How is it used in, defending one's rights? When do you insert this this personal jurisdiction? Is it early on in a case, late, right when you receive a summons, that sort of thing? So as always, thank you for coming and watching. Let me know where you are in the chat if you're watching, and let's just take care of some of the housekeeping before we get started. So if you like this show, please consider liking, subscribing to either the podcast version, the YouTube channel, Rumble channel, and please share this with others that might be interested in this stuff, especially when we're talking about associations and preparedness. Today, we're just kind of throwing in some of the questions I get about, like, hey, what's personal jurisdiction, or what's legal, what's versus lawful, that stuff. That kind of comes up in our monthly calls when I'm working with ladies over at the PMA Manifesto. So that being said, we're going to tackle the personal jurisdiction. Now, if you are a Inner Circle member over at the East Coast PMA website, there's going to be some documents up there specifically for you that I've pulled off of Westlaw, because this can get really deep of a topic. We're kind of just scraping the surface here, because you can get into international type laws and what that means with personal jurisdiction and that sort of thing. So that being said, also, if you'd like to support this channel, you can go over to either East Coast PMA or the PMA Manifesto, because the website is back up and running now, if you are looking to get your documents to start your own association. We have hybrid DIY documents on both sites, so feel free to go over to either place and pick those up. And then if you're also looking for more content, you can feel free to go over to the eastcoastpma.com. There's a bunch of different blog posts. You can listen to past episodes of the podcast over there. And then if you are like me and you're more about being taking back some of your self-custody, not having to deal with somebody that you don't know tell you what to do, whether it's a medical procedure or face covering or anything like that, and you want to live more of a free and simple life and basically just have a leaner, less intrusive government. Hopefully someday we get there. But one step to that is getting a Start9 system and taking back your computer sovereignty. And if you go over to there and you pick up one of their systems, if you use the code Rebel Alliance at checkout, it's going to give you 9% off. Now, what can you do with the Start9 system? There's a bunch of different things. What I use it for personally is my own Bitcoin node, Lightning node. I use it as my own Bitcoin BTC pay server. I use it as my own chat GPT or AI. I also use it for text communication with the wife. So, and others, that it is completely encrypted end to end, and it only goes through my server, and my data is not being shared everywhere. So that is definitely something, if you have an association or you're looking to take back more of your computer sovereignty, it's definitely something you want to check out. So that being said, if you are watching from somewhere, please jump in and say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. If you have questions on this, if you have questions on associations in general, anything like that, feel free to ask. If it's something that I just can't answer online because it's more in depth, then we'll have to set up a consultation, especially when it comes to associations and your specific need for them. So one thing we're going to talk about a little bit today is the federal civil rule booklet that I have here. Actually, some of the stuff I'm going to be uploading to East Coast PMA is out of this. I pulled it off of Westlaw, but we're going to be looking at, I think it's section 12. Yeah, section 12 basically talks about defenses and objections, and this is kind of where the personal jurisdiction comes in. So if we want to know about personal jurisdiction, I'm just going to read you some stuff here off of the Cornell law. You can look this up yourself, and I'll put the links over on East Coast PMA also in the description, because I didn't do it before I started these lives. But personal jurisdiction refers to the power that a court has to make a decision regarding the party being sued in a case. before a court can exercise power over a party, the U.S. Constitution requires that the party has certain minimum contacts with a forum in which the court sits. And that's International Shoe versus Washington of 1945. So if the plaintiff is sued, if the plaintiff sues a defendant, the defendant can object to the suit by arguing that the court does not have personal jurisdiction over the defendant. So that being said, that's kind of like the quick thing. Then it goes into some more things where you get into like personal jurisdiction versus subject matter jurisdiction and stuff like that. And that's all, a lot of it's going to be found under the federal civil rules of procedure under section 12. Now, this is going to change if you're more at the state level. So if you were in your state court, you are going to want to look at your your laws or your statutes when it comes to that within your state. Also, most states, like here in Connecticut, we have a a practice book for the courts, and you can pull it up in a PDF format. You can search personal jurisdiction. It'll tell you kind of everything, how and when you can use it, where in a lawsuit you need to use it, and it's usually early on. And one of the best. I got the dog in here today. Come on, Jada, beat it. One of the best things one of the most common ways, I guess, that I've seen it being used is, let's say here in Connecticut, you're being sued by somebody. Somebody wants to sue you for $6,000. Small claims here in Connecticut's at 5. So if they file in small claims, technically I guess it'd be more subject matter jurisdiction, but you could also raise the personal matters jurisdiction, especially if you don't live in Connecticut. So we'll get into that. So here's some key aspects. You have the basis of personal jurisdiction, typically established based on the geographical location of the parties, location where the legal dispute arises, or where the defense has sufficient connection and contact. So if you live in Connecticut, and I'm sued in Connecticut, the court would have personal jurisdiction in that matter. Then you would have to look at, in most cases, and then you would have to look at and say, okay, well, do they have subject matters jurisdiction, which maybe we'll get into in another video. There's, I guess, different types of personal jurisdiction. I'm really trying not to get too wrapped up around the acts and all this, because there is so much to it. So you have, let's call it general jurisdiction, where a court has general jurisdiction over an individual or entities that are domiciled in a geographical location. So if I live in Connecticut, then in most cases, unless there's some defense that I can put together to say, no, you don't have personal jurisdiction to hear this matter, then they're going to have the jurisdiction over me. Same thing kind of for corporations. It's often included the place of the incorporation or the principal place of business. So if I'm incorporated and as an LLC, anonymous LLC out of Wyoming, then maybe I could raise the personal jurisdiction objection. And that being said, when you're going to, and we'll get kind of like into the using it as a defense, but when you receive your initial complaint, you want to use your dismissals first. And if you go over to the jurisdictionary course, if you go over to East Coast PMA, you can find a link to the jurisdictionary course, how to win in court without a lawyer. And there's a whole section on how to answer your complaints and stuff like that. So they have a whole section. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick here. They have a whole section on affirmative defenses and objections and stuff like that. So it'll show you when to use this stuff. And it's really important because, each state has different formats and how you fill things out and everything like that. So it would be used early on. So as soon as I get the complaint, before I even would answer the complaint with affirmative defenses or anything like that, I would try to throw up all the objections that I can, in personal jurisdiction would be one of those. And, it's kind of like the first thing everybody kind of uses. And then specific jurisdiction applies to when a defendant's specific actions or contract within the jurisdiction are for the basis of legal action. And then we have what is also called, when we read through this, it says the minimum contract. So what's that standard? For a court to exercise specific jurisdiction, the defendant must have a minimum contacts with the jurisdiction where the court is located. This means the defendant must have purposely availed themselves to the privilege of conducting activities in that jurisdiction, thus reasonably anticipating being brought into the court there. So, if I'm not talking about like if you're driving through a state and you get a speeding ticket or something, you got to go to traffic court. But if I have a business, or if I have if I'm living in a certain area and something happens where I owe somebody some money or there's some type of tort, something along those lines, then the court would have that would most likely meet that minimum standard. Now, I should have said this off in the beginning. This doesn't constitute tax or legal advice. It's just one individual's thoughts on the topic. So let me get back over to the live stream here. So, that being said, there's a ton of documentation. Like if you have access to Westlaw or even just do a simple internet search uh, on subject matter jurisdiction, or I'm sorry, personal jurisdiction, there's a ton of stuff. Everything from local um, uh, local jurisdictions, like if you live in New York or Connecticut or Massachusetts or Wyoming or wherever, it's going to be held a little bit differently. Where it's kind of the same across the board if you start looking at the federal rules, where, if you're in federal court. Um, then there's also the consent and waiver. So sometimes personal jurisdiction is established through consent, either explicit or implicit. For example, contracts are often include clauses oh man, I'm gonna have a hard time talking today. Specifying where disputes must be litigated. Additionally, failing to object to jurisdiction can be considered a waiver of that right. So, like I said earlier, if you get a complaint and you don't want to go right into your affirmative defenses, what you want to do is use your objections and dismissals and stuff like that. So that one, lack for personal jurisdiction, you want to dismiss the case on lack of personal jurisdiction. Now, where does this come into play if you're talking association? So, um, in your founding documents, it's important to have dispute stuff written, and you've heard me talk about it before, where maybe there's some alternative dispute resolution in there. It's usually what I put in, because what we want to do is we want to try to stay out of the court system, right? If we're acting privately, we want to handle this between ourselves. So if you don't have to go to court, well, that's even better, and you can handle your disputes with your members within your association, like we talked about before. That's what the courts are going to look at anyways. They're going to say, okay, well, you're an association, unincorporated association. Let me see, your bylaws, your articles of organization, because they want to make sure that there's some type of um, dispute resolution in there, where it says maybe if it's, whether you can go to small claims, maybe it has to, be handled in court. Maybe you go to mediation first, or, that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that, as it says here, contracts often include a clause specifying where disputes must be litigated. So if you have a dispute and you say, hey, I have alternative dispute resolution here, that's the first step, whether it's binding or non-binding arbitration, then that's what the court's going to say. Well, you're not going to waste the judicial time here. Go to that. Now, again, criminally, that's going to be something a little bit different, but just for like civil matters within your association. Um, so that being said, there's also long arm statutes, and it says, many jurisdictions have long arm statutes that allow the court to exercise jurisdiction over non-residents in certain circumstances, such as when a non-resident commits torts within the jurisdiction or engages in a business transaction. So that's also important to remember. And there was no way I was going to remember all this stuff and not stay on topic. That's why I'm reading more today than I normally do. I have my bullet points just because, I there's so much to this, and there's so many different things that you can read. I'm going to put up a bunch of stuff. So as I pull it off of Westlaw and some other locations, if you are interested in reading more on this through East Coast PMA. So that being said, like I said earlier, there's the international consideration, which we're not even going to get into. There's also, this also ties in some cases into the 14th Amendment. So you want to know how that works. There is a bunch to this, but I really just kind of wanted to go over, what is personal jurisdiction? Like we said, we pulled it right off of Cornell Law School. You can look it up yourself. Um, and one thing I kind of touched on was that personal jurisdiction can generally be waived. Contrast with subject matter jurisdiction, which cannot be waived. So the party being sued appears in court without objecting to the court's lack of personal jurisdiction over it. Then the court will assume that the defendant is waiving and any challenges to personal jurisdiction. And again, it says see Federal Rule of Procedures 12B2. So it's very important that if you are in any type of me personally, if you're in any type of legal situation, that the first thing you do is you raise your dismissals. And like here in Connecticut, there is a certain procedure, and that's why you have to look at the practice book for the courts here at the state level, because it'll say, okay, well, here's the complaint, here's what needs to happen next, here's where your affirmative defenses come in, here's where this comes in, here's where your discovery comes in. So like I can't get a complaint and then say, okay, well, I want to have, I want to use one of my discovery tools and say, okay, I want, just, start discovery when you're just in like pre-trial stuff. So you want to make sure that you throw in all your dismissals, lack of subject matter jurisdiction, lack of personal jurisdiction, anything else that you could think of in there. And you're going to get, once you have those motions, and those are going to be filed as motions. So you need to know how those motions are written out in the format for your area. And then the judge will rule on those. Usually it doesn't have to be any type of what's the word I'm looking for? The argumentative. It can just be, here it is, make a decision on it. And that's where you want to back it up with any case law and anything like that, that you can add some meat to your motion for dismissal. And then if that doesn't happen, then you have to go and use your affirmative defenses. So that being said, I guess we can talk a little bit about challenging. I got to figure out a new place for this boom mic, because when I try to drink my coffee and do this, it turns into a nightmare. Now, I know I was gonna talk a little bit about US 10 code section 246, which has to deal with the militia in the United States. And um, I don't know if I'm going to get to that today. I'm sorry. It was kind of like on the table of what I wanted to talk about. But then as you start looking into just, personal jurisdiction, what it typically involves in a legal proceeding, that's like a rabbit hole. Like, if you wanted to talk about the straw man or your all capital letters name, something like that, where, these individuals try to use that as a defense, and it doesn't hold up anywhere. But again, it's one of those rabbit holes you can go down, and you can really start, kind of losing yourself in the topic. So that being said, again, if you are watching the live stream, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you have any questions regarding today's topic, associations, where to get started, how to get started, anything like that. Or if you just want to say, hey, what's up? I appreciate that. Also, got a few more things on the YouTube channel that are becoming active. Or I think we might have super chats on there, so you can always, say hi with the super chat and that sort of thing, and some other things that I just got notified today. But anyways, getting off topic, and this is why I keep notes, because I'll start talking about stuff all over the place. And there was something else I wanted to talk about today that kind of caught my eye. Oh man. Anyways, I can't think of it right now, but let's get into challenging the court's personal jurisdiction. Typically involves the proceeding where the defense argues that the court does not have the authority to hear a case or make a decision affecting them. So again, if you don't live in a certain area, maybe they don't have that long arm statute, maybe you know, uh trying to think of some other examples. Pretty much it has to do with the whole domicile and where you live or where your business is located. Or maybe, you have a business in, a different state, and you're incorporated in a different state. They're trying to sue you in the state that you're in. There's a bunch of different things to it. So you have to understand the basic of jurisdiction. So before challenging jurisdiction, it is important to understand why the court believes it has jurisdiction. It basis on the defendant's physical presence, business activities, property interest, or other connection to the jurisdiction. So if you are being sued or you receive a complaint, as and they're saying, hey, we're going to sue you for $1 bajillion, right? They have to show that the court has to show that they have jurisdiction to hear the case over you personally. Now, if you don't have a physical presence in that state, you don't do business in that state, you don't have a property in that state, maybe you're just a nomad and you're passing through and something happens. Well, then maybe they don't have personal jurisdiction over you, and you can use that as a defense. So you have that. Then this is where we were talking about. I kind of got ahead of myself and talking about file a motion for dismiss or whatever responsive pleading you're going to file. But like I said, here in Connecticut, if you look through the Connecticut practice book for the courts, this is usually done early on. And then what will happen is if you don't and this is where I'm like, there's a difference between state and federal. So if you are in your, let's say, state court, there's probably going to be, in most cases, a flow to how the documents have to follow. Um, so if you get a complaint early on, you want to file that motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction early on. That's how it is in Connecticut. Like I said earlier, I can't say, okay, well, I want to use my affirmative defenses, and then I want to go back um, to uh, to file a motion to dismiss on lack of personal jurisdiction, because then the other side's going to come back and say, no, that needs to get dismissed. That dismissal needs. They're going to file a motion of dismissal for that motion of dismissal for purpose of for lack of personal jurisdiction, because I've now gone out of order of how the flow should work. Just like I couldn't ask for use my discovery tools early on, but that doesn't mean as you go through the process, something comes up and you can say, no, I want to, motion dismiss for this or motion dismiss for that. But what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to blow your motion to dismiss out of water because you didn't follow the practice book rules. So that's very important to know. And again, you need to know what it is in your jurisdiction, because again, it's going to be different. Connecticut's going to be different than Washington State or Hawaii or what have you. So, and I think that's kind of one of the problems online is you get a lot of people that are into constitutional law, or they may not be attorneys. Might be somebody that's pursuing their law degree like myself, because I find this stuff interesting: tort law, contract law, trust law. All these different things are very interesting. It's such a wide aspect when you start looking at, common law stuff. When you start looking at statutory law, international law, all those different types of things, people try to generalize it. And this is why when I do any of my videos, I try to tell you, listen, just because this is what I'm saying, you need to research it for your area. Because I'm mostly going off of my personal experience with the court systems here in Connecticut, people that I've talked to, people that I know that have cases that have handled themselves and maybe went down the road of using the sovereign citizen type, that's the state national type of defenses, where it doesn't work. And you see more people get upside down and lose their case because they didn't use simple tactics that will get their cases won. And that's why I think Dr. Graves' stuff is so important. If you go over and take his course, the jurisdictionary course over there, how to win in court without a lawyer, get the link right on East Coast PMA. I do get a small portion if you purchase it through that. Kind of helps fund the website, stuff like that. So I would appreciate that. It is a great course to teach you all this stuff. And he goes into more depth. He's been a practicing attorney for a long time. He has more of a liberty-minded, freedom-minded mentality, as far as I've taken from my few phone call conversations with him and seeing some of his writings. And one of the other things that I didn't even know he had, I just want to see if I can pull this up. He does have another website. It's called AmericanJusticeFoundation.com. And that's where you can go to help promote public justice education. So there's some stuff over there. But if you do go over and get his course, and see, now I'm getting off topic, we'll get back into this. It's going to talk about evidence rules made easy, how to make objections, the keys to winning, why winning is easy, the essential elements of a case. There's 2.5 hours of audio, 5 hours of video, sample legal forms. And again, you got to tailor those to your area. And if you are doing stuff pro se, the court's going to definitely be more lenient on your forms if they're not done just like the bar attorney that you're in combat with. How to control lawyers, how to control judges. This one's huge, how to use affirmative defenses. And I think that's something we're going to talk about down the road. And then also, what is an affidavit? And it gets into child custody tactics, how to read law, how to use, how to prepare for court, how to do legal research. So anyways, I'm getting off topic here, but it's a good course. Go over to eastcoastpma.com and use the link over there, right-hand side, just scroll down a little bit and you'll see it. So, you want to file the motion for motion to dismiss for lack of personal jurisdiction early on. Okay, yeah, early on. So then when you're doing that, you want to present legal arguments. The defendant must provide legal argument and sometimes evidence showing why the court lacks personal jurisdiction. This might involve arguing that the defendant does not have sufficient contracts with the jurisdiction. The defendant contract does not meet the minimum contracts standard for specific jurisdiction. Exercising jurisdiction would violate principles of fair play and substantial justice. So those are just some of the things, as I was putting this together, thinking about. And again, you got to keep in mind those key aspects of what is the personal jurisdiction. Do you have a contract in that area? Do you have residence there? Do you have a business there? All that stuff. What ties you to that jurisdiction? And then you want to cite any relative case law and statutes. So again, common law is great, looking at stuff of how courts have ruled on things before. But again, if we can use what they've put in place, so like Connecticut, we use that general statute that deals with religious organizations and education. You want to see what has what relevant case law and statutes are there. It's essential to reference applicable case law, constitutional provisions, and statutes that support your argument. For instance, in the U.S., defendants might cite cases interpreting the due process clause of the Constitution, 14th Amendment, that sort of thing. You can look into that more, where you can say, okay, here's why, I don't think you have personal jurisdiction. Now you're going to add that meat and potatoes to it. You want to keep that stuff jelly tight. So when they look at it, they can't say, oh yeah, you're just, throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks, right? Like we talked about the long arm statute, you want to make sure that you address that. If the jurisdiction's long arm statute involves an analysis of whether the statute authorizes jurisdiction in a specific circumstance of a case, and if you don't apply to that, you want to make sure that you knock that down. Because again, don't forget, you have to, as the defendant, not only, you're not only defending yourself against the court, but or not against the court, but you're showing the reason why the court doesn't have this jurisdiction over you. But you also want to make sure that you line things up to where your opposing forces, the other attorney or the plaintiff, or if they're suing you as pro se, you want to make sure that you're knocking anything that they might throw up at you. So if they throw up a curveball, you want to knock that out of the park, and you want to prepare for that. So that's why you need to, it's not just, and there's a lot of good people online. Alphonse has a great stuff. He does stuff mostly with taxes for the most part, but he's really good at, what he does. There's Steve Emerson, who does a lot out of Florida with taxes. You have Dave Merlin out of Washington State that also does stuff, the tax protest stuff. But, their writings are really good, and you can learn a lot from reading some of their writings. I did have a big bundle of legalese stuff I was providing. I might put that back up on the website. It's like, I think it was like 15 or 20 gigs of information. So it did take a little bit of a while to download. So I was putting it on thumb drives and sending it out. But there's a lot of information in there that can really help. There's a lot of course material that I got from other places that I've put in there. But anyways, you do learn a lot by reading cases and looking at how other people write their motions, their affirmative defenses, what they're writing. Now, if you're reading something like some of the other cases, like early on with Amos Miller, we looked at, he was bringing a lot of the state national movement type stuff. So it didn't fly, and the court's going to see through that. It's not like you're the first person to come up with it. So, use what works, use what's going to win, use those tactics and those procedures. And that's why I'm such a huge advocate for the stuff that Dr. Graves does and his writings. So, okay. Again, see, this is why I keep notes, because I get all over the place, and then people are like, I'm not watching this live stream anymore. Peace out. So I apologize. Thanks to those who are still watching. Feel free to drop a line where you're watching at and what platform you're watching at. I think I can see what platform you're on, just because I want to make sure I'm in the right spot. And, it looks like Rebel Alliance on YouTube seems to be the spot everybody goes to. Not much action in the Facebook group, or Rumble's starting to pick up a little bit, but I can't see comments over there until after the fact. But that being said, you want to also not give the court any consent. So you want to avoid actions that imply consent. So like we were talking about earlier, not putting in that dismissal for lack of public or personal jurisdiction. If you don't use that defense, or you don't put that motion in, then the court might say, okay, well, you're not challenging it, so we must have personal jurisdiction over you. So you want to make sure that you do that. And I'm trying not to get off topic here, but if you watch a lot of videos, whether you're on TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, you're going to see some of these I don't know how else to put it. I don't want to keep saying state national because there is some, I think, good stuff that comes out of that as far as, making you think about things. But um, there are certain individuals out there that try to say, you don't have personal jurisdiction over me because I'm a living, breathing man. And this is the all capital letters name that's coming to court. And that stuff rarely flies. Now, there's like one or two videos that I've seen where it's kind of worked. There was a guy, I cannot think of his name. I was just getting caught up on his case where he was fishing and he got into a bunch of trouble. And he wears like this old time hat. I don't know how else to explain it with like a feather in it. He's got a beard. He was very he was well spoken, I guess is the best way to put it. His stuff did get dismissed, but wasn't easy, and I don't think it took some time. He did some jail time and stuff like that. But anyways, just be careful that you're not giving consent to the court by saying yes, by not using one of your defenses, I guess is the best way to put it. And then the other thing is, you want to prepare for the possible outcomes. If successful, the case might be dismissed, or the plaintiff might be required to file it in a different jurisdiction. So, I bring up like the whole small claims thing. If unsuccessful, the case proceeds in the current court, and then that's when you get into using your affirmative defenses or maybe a different type of dismissal or motion to dismiss. And then, of course, you can always consider appeals and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I wanted to go over with the whole personal jurisdiction. Is just kind of what is it? How is it used in court? What does the court look at to see if they have personal jurisdiction over you? And remember, that's like what we said. You're going to have, let me just bring my notes back up so I can just, read it, make it a lot easier. It's going to be, basically has to do with domicile and a geographical location, where you either have, where you're living, where you have a place of business, or if you have certain contracts in that area. And then that's when we look at the minimum contract standard. And again, a lot of stuff you'll be able to find on East Coast PMA. I'll put it up there for you. And thanks for all of you that are jumping on. We're at 5 right now. So I think that's almost a record. And we're at episode 44, 5, 46. So I got to start putting that stuff up front. But let me know where you're watching from. I can look at the comments. So if you have comments on, associations in general, where can I get the DIY templates? When's your next live call with the PMA Manifesto group? How do I set up a consultation with you? Or if you have some other question, or if you just have a question in general, or just want to say hi, let me know. Because, if you look at what's going on in the propaganda news lately, there's places now bringing back the face coverings, and I'm going to try to choose my words here so I don't get banned everywhere. But originally, when this started happening, we saw a big influx in associations being set up. And this is why I think it's very important that we set up associations and understand the legalese, how the court system works, how to defend ourselves if somebody should do us wrong, how to defend ourselves if we walk into a place and somebody tells us, hey, you have to put this on your face. We say, no, we don't want to. And then let the fun ensue from there. Right. So I think it's really important that within a local level, we understand, how to associate, how to protect ourselves in a group. And, many people say, oh, I'm not going to vote in elections. I'm not going to do this. And right at the national level, I'm kind of conflicted on how I feel about voting. But at the local level, uh, this is where we can make a lot of change. And this is where associations can come in. So let's just say you go to maybe you go to a church and you've got, a large church, or maybe, a couple people in a couple different churches or different social clubs, and you are all in one town, and there's somebody running for the board of ed, or there's somebody running for the town selectman or the mayor's position. Some of these positions run unopposed. And if you want to start making changes at the local level, that's where you get all these people to come in and say, okay, well, you know what? I haven't voted in the last 10 years, but I'm tired of how things are being run in my town. So now I'm going to come in and vote for this person. And maybe you get somebody in your group that says, yeah, you know what? Crap, I'm going to run for mayor because I don't like the way things are going. And you might be able to, in most cases, and I'm trying to think of where I just listened to this, and it was on Family Talk. And why can't I think of the guy's name? If I can find it, I will put it in the next video or link it somewhere. But they made some changes in their local town in Texas. I forgot what town it was, but they literally, that's what they did. They had a church of like 5,000 members. Half the church, wasn't voting. They went and said, "Listen, we're tired of this propaganda getting pushed on our children. We need to make some changes." And basically, the whole church came into that town and voted and just booted everybody off the board of ed. And I might be getting that a little wrong, but this is where we're going to start seeing changes and getting together in associations and saying, "Listen, we're going to associate because we need to change the local government in our area and start locally. And then from there, move up to the state level. And then eventually the national level will start to change." I don't think we can put all of our eggs in one basket saying, this one guy is going to get back into office and fix everything. And now I'm getting off topic. I apologize because, there's a lot of things I like about him. There's a lot of things I don't like about him. But if he had done a lot of the stuff he said he was going to do the first time around, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in now. I'm going to leave it at that. But I truly believe that we need a leaner, less intrusive government. I think we're all a little bit of an anarchist at heart at some point, whether you're speeding through a 25-mile-an-hour zone because there's nobody around and you know that you're going straight and you're not going to crash your car, or it might be something else that you're selling duck eggs to your neighbors and other people because it's between you, them, and a fence post, or maybe they're part of your association and you know that, hey, my town doesn't allow this. So I think that if we really start associating and getting together for these common goals, whether it's homesteading, whether it's, learning how the law works, whether it's, saying, "Hey, we want to get together. We want to make change in our local boards, our local districts," that sort of thing. That's where the power is going to come. And that's where we start using our rights under the First and 14th Amendment, where we're going to start making a change. And that's kind of like my rant for today. We're at about 36 minutes. I apologize. And that's where I was kind of going to go into the whole, 10 U.S. Code 246, the militia. And because people are like, "Oh, well, we have the National Guard, we have this, we have a state militia." And have you ever seen your state militia? I know here in Connecticut, it's like the Connecticut Foot Guard or something like that. It's a bunch of old guys riding around on horses. Not that I'm talking Red Dawn stuff here or doom and gloom, but, we don't understand. And I think this is the problem. Even me too. I don't understand all the things that are afforded to us through our constitutions, state, local, state constitutions, federal constitution, your charters within your towns, all those things. So if you look at 10 U.S. Code 246, the militia, it says the militia of the United States consists of all body males at least 17 years of age and except as provided in section 313, Title 32, under 45 years of age, who are or have made a declaration of intention to become a citizen of the United States and a female citizen of the United States who are members of the National Guard. So if you are not a member of the National Guard and you are between 17 and 45, you are considered part of the militia. Now, I am not saying we need any kinetic warfare or anything like that, but it probably would makes sense to understand some tactics, maybe watch a few videos on YouTube. There's a bunch of, how to, handle a firearm, maybe take an NRA class, get certified to carry in your area. I know my wife did it a few years ago and, they had one person at the state police firearms area where there was a line a mile long because they make it difficult, right? They were like, "Oh, we don't have enough people." So understand where your rights are and what you have, what you're entitled to, and how you can put these things together to protect not only yourself but your community, especially at the local level. And this is where I think a lot of this stuff is going to change. So understanding, personal jurisdiction is a part of that. Understanding subject matter jurisdiction is a part of that, because not only do we have to know how the law works, but we also need to know how to defend ourselves. Should some clown say, "Oh, hey, you can't sell bacon to your neighbor." Well, who the hell are you to tell me I can't sell bacon to my neighbor or trade for Liberty Dollars or maybe eggs or something like that? And that's why I think associations are such an important aspect. If you look back, the 30s to the 50s, 20s to 50s, maybe 30s to 50s, associations were huge. Your Elks Club, your Moose Lodges, your VFWs, your American Legions, and other groups like that, they all met once a month. Maybe it was weekly, got together for dinner. People were going out. They were going to bowling leagues. They had all these people that were getting together. Now people sit on their phones. They sit on the online. I thank you all for watching, considering we're online. But it was a different time period, and people were more connected than we are now. And people knew their neighbors. They knew how to help their neighbors if something went down. Like, hey, I had a tree fall across my driveway. You didn't sit on your front porch drinking a cup of coffee, watching your neighbor struggle. That might be a single mother. You're out there helping. And I personally, I think most of the people that are attracted to what I have to say are going to be in that kind of mindset. But I think we really need to start bringing back these associations because, again, this is where we're going to start making changes. And a lot of it's going to start with educating ourselves and not just listening to some crackpot on the internet. Not that I'm a crackpot, but, listen to somebody that can back up what they're talking about and giving you the resources to educate yourself. And then you learn that stuff and then you educate the others that are in your group and that group grows and you work towards that common goal, whether it's taking over a school board position or running for mayor or town selectman or whatever it is within your local community because you're tired of maybe the Satan Club coming in and running after school programs or, drag queen story time or any of this other nonsense that's being pushed upon our kids because that's where they're going to try to brainwash them, right? If you're a Gen Xer like myself, you ain't putting up with any of that crap, right? Now, and you're going to be there to fight because we're latchkey kids. We were probably the last great generation. I would say, we had a key to our house. We weren't worried about walking home from school. We handled our differences behind the school library, and then we were friends the next day. And we were kind of wild. And I think that's kind of, we need to start channeling that energy back and really start educating our younger members of society and say, listen, just because somebody says jump, you don't have to say how high. You can say, why are you asking me to jump? And this is something that I think we should. Anyways, I'm getting off topic here, but thanks for watching. I'm going to see if we have any comments real quick. I'm going to jump over to the Facebook group. If you have any comments, if you want to say hi, let me know where you're watching from. I would appreciate that. I always like seeing where everybody's coming in at, and nothing over at the Facebook group. Let me check the live feed here. So yeah, we got nothing, no comments. I must be, I love it when I'm this good and I answer all your questions in the videos. I'm just kidding. I do appreciate it. I think most people like to do, instead of typing out a paragraph, they want to just ask, online or, in a video conference. And we'll probably, at the end of the month, do our first live call for the inner circle. So if you're a part of that in East Coast PMA, that's going to be separate from the stuff I do with the two Angelas and Erica over at the PMA Manifesto. This is actually kind of like a paid membership. So, I'm trying to get content out just for you and do these calls. I'm going to shoot for twice a month, depending on the schedule, but then everybody can get on and ask their questions. And those recordings will be recorded and they will be set private for only members to rewatch them. So if you become a member down the road, you'll be able to do that. Hey, Lana, thanks for jumping on from Massachusetts. Well, all right. So you're my neck of the wood and now you live in Florida. I don't blame you. It's 23 degrees this morning up here and the weather's crazy tomorrow. It's going to be raining and 50, I think. So you can't make this up. My mother just went back to Florida. She was very happy to get back to a 70-degree house because we keep it at a nice, cool 65 here. And she was dying. But anyways, thanks for jumping on. I appreciate it. I'll give it a few more minutes if anybody has any questions. While we're doing that, again, I just want to remind you, if you want more content, head over to the PMA Manifesto. I try to post regularly on there for blog posts. The videos go up there. The past podcasts are up there. And then again, if you are looking for the DIY templates, I get this question a lot. Feel free to head over to the East Coast PMA. You can go into the shop section. There's a bunch of stuff under there. There's a DIY templates, stuff like that. And then you can also go over to the PMA Manifesto. If you are interested in the free monthly call we do at the PMA Manifesto, make sure you get onto the newsletter or the Facebook group, and you can just search the PMA Manifesto. It'll come up. It might take a day or two to get access to the group. Let them know that you heard it through the Rebel Alliance. That way there we know where everybody's coming from, because we do vet people that we let in. And then again, let's see, we got any other comments? Let's see. All right, here we go. I'm working with the Freedom People on my status correction, but love to learn from all. All right. I've mixed. I have I get, okay. Let's see, how do I want to put this? Good. I'm glad you're going down that rabbit hole. Please keep me informed on how it works out for you. Let me know if you get your birth certificate certified and you file it at the different state levels, and then where you go from there. Because I'd be very interested to see how that process goes for you. Because hi Jada, I've known others that have tried to do that stuff and it hasn't worked out so well. And there's different ways of doing it if you follow like Anna von Reitz or David Strait or something like that, where it's more the state national side of things. And then there's, the Freedom People, stuff like that. We've had some crossings with them. I think if that's the right group. Oh, you got it double authenticated. All right. That's good. That's the first step as far as when I went through all this and learned for myself and kind of, looked at the process. That was one of the things, is having them double authenticated and sending it off to all the different agencies and stuff like that. I got to find a link. For those of you who listen to Chris Ann Hall, if you go over to her website, she's a constitutional attorney. She's very good. She actually answered this question about the state national, and it's very interesting, her take from it from a legal point of view, and a lot of the rights that you give up as a U.S., being a citizen of the United States. So, I'm just looking at some of thank you for all these comments. I appreciate it. So she also said, serve my injunctions here in Florida, got pulled over, and you never see them come back so quickly. Yes, there are. So I personally don't, I don't care about driving with a license or with tags on my vehicle. I just think that, yes, you can fight the whole uh yeah, Chris Ann's in your area. That's awesome. I would love to talk to her someday. But for me, I'm 45. I'm going to be 46 in March. I figure with the stressful life that I've led, being in the military and in law enforcement, and I probably, maybe, like, my life expectancy is like 57, I think, maybe 60 on average. So I try to take care of myself. I'm trying to get another, 20, maybe another 40 years on this planet. And for me to, yes, I understand you can drive without a license. You're traveling. You're not open for commercial use. You're not transporting anything. You're not Ubering. You're not doing any of that stuff. So you don't technically need a license. And there's all this stuff that backs it up. I just don't want to fight that. Like, I've got better things to do than worrying about getting pulled over from one of my buddies that's a cop, or, that sort of thing. Okay. So, all right. So this is USAF veteran, so I appreciate that. So am I. I did 20 years in security forces. That was a long 20 years, but yeah, multiple deployments. I wouldn't have changed my experiences at all, but I would never do it again now, because the the military is so woke, it's disgusting. It hurts me to even say, like, hey, I wouldn't even join the military right now, just because of these clowns that have mental illnesses that are running the stuff. But anyways, um, if you could, I would be very interested to talk to you more about what you're doing, because I've talked to a few people, and a lot of this stuff is like secondhand. But you were put on a do not detain, do not stop. That's very interesting. I would love to have either an online conversation with you or offline, just to kind of get your experiences. Because I have friends here that are state nationals within our state. I've had friends that have and I went down that whole route, looking up my social security number on the NASDAQ to see what it was at, how much money was in there, and there was some weird stuff, right? Like, why is there an account with my social on it, and the Federal Reserve and all that stuff? So I've went down that. I've had acquaintances of mine, actually one of my trustees with Liberty House, one of her friends, he did a bunch of different things, but he tried to use a lot of this stuff for his court case, and basically just it didn't work out for him. So I'd be interested to talk to you more uh, with what you're doing, and we can keep it completely offline if you'd like. I just like to kind of get in all the information I can, because you get a lot of these gurus that go online and they pump all this nonsense that's been pushed since the late 60s, 70s. I mean, the all capital letters name strawman account goes back decades. It's not anything new. But during the scamdemic, when it happened, people were buying, affidavits that were filled out for $250 and saying, "Hey, I got this affidavit, so I don't have to wear a face covering or mask." Try not to use keywords here to get banned everywhere. But okay, cool. You joined the Facebook group a few days ago. Good. I will send you a DM and maybe we can connect offline. But these, and what kills me is some of these people, and a lot of them are named David for some reason, preyed on people not knowing, people being scared, people not understanding, like, hey, I've gone so long with never being challenged about anything. Now I'm being told I have to stick something up my nose to be tested to go to work, or I have to put this on to go into Whole Foods or wherever it is that you're shopping. That these people just took advantage of people. And it just disgusts me because a lot of this information is just out there. You just have to spend the time looking for it. But we're also not taught civics anymore. We're not taught how to defend ourselves. Like Dr. Gray's stuff about, having the legal system being taught in school, I think is a huge thing. You should know your rights. You should know how to stand upon your rights, how to answer summonses and that sort of thing. And I think the problem is a lot of this stuff, like with the whole driving thing. Yes, there's court cases you can find. There's documents you can put together and say, look, I'm not driving in commerce. I'm just, traveling. And most of the time you have to fight with the trooper or whoever's pulling you over, get a supervisor out there. To me, that's a waste of my precious time on this planet when I can just get the license to drive around and, not speed and not do stupid things. Like, listen, there was a while I didn't realize my truck wasn't registered. I would think it was like 6 months I was driving around and forgot my truck was unregistered. So there's certain things that you can do until you get caught, right? But I just think there's better ways for us to spend our time on this planet. And the thing was is that all these people had issues or were scared, and then you had all these people come out and say, "Hey, I have affidavits, I have this, I have that," and they start pumping all this crap out there and getting people in more legal trouble than if they had just taken Dr. Graves' course, looked at stuff that Big Sib puts out, look at stuff that Alfonso puts out, Steve Emerson, that sort of thing. Dave Merlin's stuff, where it actually is written and using the law correctly. So I'm definitely let's see. I'm gonna try to get caught up on all your stuff here. Let's see. Okay, cool. Let's definitely talk. And then you were that was in taxes back. Yeah, there's a lot of tax stuff. So this being said, oh man, probably like 7, 8 years ago is when I started going down the whole State National Anna Von Wright stuff, started consuming as much stuff I could get from her, started looking at the straw man account, the all capital letters names, and the videos have since been taken down. And I was following these few people that were talking about this stuff. And one guy ended up through USAA, and the only reason why I was interested in this because I bank at USAA Navy Federal is he did a wire transfer using his social security number, some routing number from a Federal Reserve bank, and people were using these numbers to buy crap on Amazon and all this other stuff. So he somehow got this transfer to go through and then used the money to buy an RV, and then they ended up getting him for wire fraud and transactions across state lines. And the guy ended up going to jail. And his whole defense was, well, this is my all capital letters name. This is my account. It's based on my social security number. And, to me, I kind of look at it as like, hey, that might be, but I didn't set it up and I really don't care. I worked my ass off for what I have and I don't need this money in that account, right? It's not mine if it does exist or doesn't exist. But I would love to have conversations with anybody that's actually gone through the whole process, the secured party creditor, whatever you want to call it. There's a bunch of different things that I've looked at down the road, and copywriting your name and stuff like that, putting them on notice and fines and violations. Yeah, we definitely need to talk because I went down this road many, many years ago, and like I said, I still have friends that are state nationals in the state now, and it's just there's a lot of holes that can be poked in it. I guess just like anything else, but there's not enough wins for me to say, listen, if you get a summons, let's say you had a credit card, you defaulted on it, and now some dirtbag collection agencies coming after you and are suing you. They're hoping you don't respond to that complaint because they're just going to get a default judgment against you. However, if you know how to answer that complaint, maybe try to get it dismissed under personal or subject matter jurisdiction or some of the other dismissals that we could use, motions for dismiss, and then answering it if you can't get it dismissed with your affirmative defenses, and then going through and understanding the contract, maybe there's a clause that says arbitration needs to happen first. I'm just saying. So you want to get everything pushed out of court and then go to arbitration and make them pay for arbitration because they're the company. There's a many different ways of doing things. And when it comes to consumer law, there's a lot of stuff that's in your favor as a consumer. And that's why it's important to document when they're calling, how many emails they're sending you, how many text messages, all that stuff. So I'm getting way off topic today. We're almost at 55 minutes. We've got 10 people on. This has been a record. Awesome. I appreciate it. Let me know if you like this content. Okay. So this is I appreciate all your comments. I can't put them all up because we'd be here all day, but I can't tell you how happy I am right now to see 11 people online listening to what we have to say, listening and joining in the conversation. Hopefully it it opens some eyes for people and understanding what they need to do. Hey, Frozen Dog, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. As always, I okay. I'm not bashing anybody. Just do your research when it comes to some of these people online. Look at some of their past, and if their stuff worked, why didn't it work for them? I'm just going to leave it at that. There are some good things, but you kind of have to pick through all the BS to get to it. And that's why, we do stuff with the PMA manifesto. We try to keep the truth out there, stuff that works for everybody, kind of debunking some of the other stuff, especially when it comes to associations. And then, when it comes to, this common law stuff or understanding law, I'm giving you my aspect on it. I could be completely wrong. That's why I say do your own research. Don't just trust what I'm saying. Go over to, Google Scholar, look up some of these cases, go to CaseMind, go to Cornell Law School, look up the stuff, read it for yourself. Don't take anything that anybody says at face value because, my interpretation could be completely wrong. And, I am pursuing my legal degree. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. This stuff I find it fascinating. It's something I'm interested in, at this point in my life. And, so why not, get a better understanding. And I got to say, if you haven't taken the Dr. Graves, How to Win in Court Without an Attorney, get over to East Coast PMA. It's right on the right-hand side. Click on that button, get over there, get started. The information, you're just going to be like, I didn't realize it was this easy to handle these dirty dirt bags in court, basically. Yeah, language and spells and all that stuff. If you listen to Crow 777, he goes into a lot of that. He's another good podcaster out there. I think he's out of Rhode Island. He gets into a lot of that, like words have meaning type stuff. Alfonso talks about that same thing. So does Big Sib. So yeah, it is important, to understand what you're getting into and what you're doing and how to defend yourself. So I really appreciate everybody getting on today. If you are watching the replay of this, or if you're catching the audio version, please let me know where you're listening from. And again, I'm trying to go live Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So feel free to jump on, ask your questions. Let's have a conversation about, protecting our liberties and making change at the local level. And maybe eventually, I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, getting that leaner, less intrusive government, because let's be honest, right now, that government's pretty fat pig, high on the hog, so to speak. So thank you all for watching. And I will see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Not quite sure what we're going to talk about yet, but feel free to reach out to me. You can get my contact information over at East Coast PMA or Bowman at protonmail.com. And let me know if there's certain topics you want to discuss on air, live, transmitting everywhere. It's crazy. Like, I'm a Gen Xer. Like I said, we didn't have this growing up. I remember dial-up. This is so much cooler now. I get to talk about things that I find fascinating and to reach all these people from all over to talk about this stuff. So thanks for listening to me. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your afternoon coffee. And I will see you on the next episode. Peace.
There aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
Enemies of the state.